Have you ever sent a message asking for help and watched the silence stretch into hours, days, weeks? Maybe you've achieved something you're genuinely proud of, but when you looked around for someone to celebrate with, there was no one. Not because you're unlikable or cursed, but because life sometimes strips away every external support system and leaves you standing alone in the dark, wondering if you have what it takes. That moment when you realize, I have to do this by myself, isn't failure. It's initiation. The mentor who never appeared, the friend who disappeared when things got hard, the family that doesn't understand your path. These absences aren't punishments. They're invitations to a different kind of journey. A journey that most people never take because they never have to. There's a line that cuts straight to the bone. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakes? When no one is there to validate you, to guide you, to carry you forward, you're not abandoned. You're being called to wake up. Solitude isn't the absence of support. It's the furnace where a truer support is forged. Not from others, but from the self, that deeper center most people never access because they're too busy collecting approval. This isn't going to be about networking strategies or manifesting your tribe. This is about becoming the person who can walk alone and still move forward. This is about Carl Jung empath and personal development in its rawest, most necessary form, the kind that happens when you have no choice but to turn inward and discover what's actually there. The journey ahead has 5 movements, and each one demands something from you. First, understanding why you're alone and why it might be necessary for your evolution. Second, meeting the companions who never left your shadow, your inner counterpart, your deepest self. These aren't abstractions. They're psychological realities you can actually work with. Third, the practical alchemy of solo advancement, real techniques, not platitudes. Fourth, building internal structures that don't collapse when external ones fail. And fifth, emerging as someone who doesn't just survive solitude, but transforms through it into something more whole, more real, more yourself. If you're here, you already know what loneliness tastes like. You know the 3 a.m. feeling of wondering if you're doing this whole life thing wrong. Stay with me. This gets uncomfortable because we're going to look at parts of yourself you've been avoiding, but it leads somewhere real. Somewhere you can actually stand without needing anyone's permission to be there. Let's start with the mask. We all wear one. The persona, as it's called in depth psychology, is the face we show the world to be accepted, loved, validated. You've spent years building this version of yourself that other people can approve of. The good student, the responsible employee, the fun friend, the dutiful child. You've been constructing a palace on stage curtains, and now the audience has left. The terror hits if no one sees me. Do I exist? This is the persona crisis, and it's necessary because you've been living for external validation so long that you've forgotten there's someone underneath. When the audience disappears, when no one is there to applaud your performance, the mask starts to crack. And through those cracks, something else begins to emerge. Maybe you're hearing voices inside your head right now. I'm not interesting enough. I don't deserve support. Everyone else has people. What's wrong with me? These aren't just thoughts. They're the shadow speaking. The shadow is everything you've rejected about yourself, every part you deemed too needy, too ambitious, too angry, too weak, too much, too little. And when you're alone, when distractions fade, and you can't drown out the noise with social activity, that shadow gets loud. But here's the truth that changes everything. These voices aren't your enemies. They're showing you what needs attention. The unconscious doesn't speak in clear language. It speaks in symptoms, in emotions, in patterns that keep repeating until you finally pay attention. Being alone strips away the noise so you can finally hear what's been screaming inside for years, maybe decades. The inner critic that says, "See, no one wants you," is actually trying to protect you from rejection by keeping your expectations low. The victim that whispers, "Why does this always happen to me?" is pointing to an unhealed wound that needs your compassion, not your contempt. The tyrant demanding perfection is terrified that if you show your real self, you'll be abandoned. These parts developed for good reasons. They're just outdated now, operating from childhood logic in an adult world. This is the beginning of what's called individuation, not becoming special or better than others, but becoming whole. It's the process of integrating every rejected part, every denied emotion, every unlived potential. And solitude accelerates this process like nothing else can. When no one is there to mirror you, you must learn to see yourself. When external voices quiet down, internal voices get clearer. The deepest part of you, the self, can finally be heard above the chaos. Think of it as a desert, not punishment, but preparation. Ancient wisdom understood this: 40 days in the wilderness, the solitary tree, where awakening happens, the shamanic isolation, the hermit in the cave. The pattern repeats across cultures because it points to something psychologically real. Transformation requires separation. The desert burns away false friends who were never really there. The false self you performed for approval. The false goals you borrowed from others' expectations because you didn't know what you actually wanted. And in that burning, something else is revealed. Your actual values, what matters when no one is watching and you have no one to impress. Your actual strength, what you can do without applause, without validation, without anyone telling you you're on the right path. Your actual direction, where you naturally move when no one is steering you, when you're finally free to follow the pull of your own becoming. So if you're alone right now, hear this clearly. You're not being punished. You're being refined. The world hasn't rejected you. It's stepped back so you can finally meet yourself. And you're about to meet the companions who never actually left. The first companion is the one you've been running from, your shadow, not the villain you imagine, but the warehouse of unlived power. Every quality you rejected, every impulse you suppressed, every desire you shamed, it's all stored there, waiting. And when you're alone, 3 specific shadows tend to emerge with particular force. First, the wounded child who whispers, "I'm not enough, I'm unlovable." This voice comes from early experiences of abandonment or criticism, from moments when you needed support and got silence, when you showed vulnerability and got punishment. It sabotages your advancement through fear of being seen, because being seen once meant being hurt. But here's the practice. Close your eyes for 10 minutes. Invite this child to sit across from you. See them clearly, their age, their expression, their pain. Ask gently, "What do you protect? What do you need from me?" Then write down what you hear. This isn't fantasy, it's active imagination. And it transforms shadow into ally by giving it voice, recognition, compassion. Second, the critic or tyrant who demands, "You must be perfect or you're worthless." This voice thinks it's protecting you from rejection by holding impossible standards. If you're perfect, you reason unconsciously, no one can criticize you. If you never need anything, no one can let you down. But perfection is a prison, and this voice is the warden. Thank it for trying to protect you, because it was necessary once when you were small and had no other defenses. Then take the lead. One boundary today. One moment of play that serves no purpose. One finished task before starting something new. This reprograms the relationship from tyranny to partnership. Third, the outcast who says, "I don't belong anywhere." This one guards the most precious gift, your authenticity, your unique vision, your creative rebellion. Loneliness is often the price of originality. The person who thinks differently, who sees what others don't, who refuses to perform the expected role they walk alone more often than not. When you reclaim this shadow, you realize you're not broken, you're just not made for what everyone else chose. That's not a flaw. That's your signature. That's the thing only you can offer the world. But there's a deeper companion, waiting one that completes you in a way no external person ever could. Men carry an inner feminine intuition, emotion, connection, creativity, the capacity to feel deeply and create beauty. Women carry an inner masculine logic, assertion, structure, courage, the capacity to think clearly and act decisively. These aren't stereotypes, but psychological completeness, the inner marriage that makes you whole. When you develop this inner counterpart, you don't need external validation to feel whole. The man who can't access his anima needs women to feel for him, create for him, relate for him, because he's rejected those capacities in himself. The woman who can't access her animus needs men to think for her, decide for her, protect her, because she's denied her own strength. Integration means self-sufficiency in the deepest sense. Not that you don't need people, but that you don't need them to complete you. Try this daily practice. Spend 5 minutes journaling to your inner counterpart. Men, ask your inner feminine, what do I need to feel today? What beauty am I ignoring? What relationship needs tending? Women, ask your inner masculine, what decision am I avoiding? What boundary do I need to set? What action wants to be taken? Build this relationship like you would any other. It becomes your internal support system, always available, never exhausted. And then there's the self, the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious together, different from the small ego that craves approval and fears rejection. The self is the axis your entire life wants to turn around. Its voice doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't demand, it invites. It feels like rightness, not righteousness. Calm, clear, non-anxious. It's the feeling of being exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you came here to do. The self speaks through dreams, through recurring symbols that appear in your sleep and your waking life. It speaks through body sensations, tightness in your chest when you're off path, expansion in your heart when you're aligned. It speaks through synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that feel like breadcrumbs leading you somewhere you didn't know you needed to go. Every morning before reaching for your phone, before letting the world in, sit for 5 minutes. Ask this question: what wants to move through me today? Listen without judging. Act on the first clear instruction. This is how you replace external mentors with internal guidance that never sleeps, never judges, never abandons you. You're also connected to something larger than your personal story. The collective unconscious holds every myth, every archetype, every pattern ever lived. You have access to all of it, not metaphorically, but psychologically. The hero's journey, the wise elder, the trickster, the mother, the warrior. These patterns live in you, ready to be activated when you need them. Choose one teacher from history, doesn't matter if they're alive or dead. Marcus Aurelius, Marie Curie, Rumi Miyamoto Musashi, whoever speaks to your condition. Read 1 page daily. Journal your response. Debate their ideas. Let dead masters become living companions. This is the circle of one mentor, and it ends isolation without requiring a single living person to show up for you. Finally, there's the numinous experiences of the sacred, the mysterious, the holy other, not necessarily religious but spiritual in the bone-deep sense. When you feel connected to something beyond your small self, beyond your problems and fears and petty concerns, isolation transforms from loneliness into solitude. You're alone with purpose, connected to something eternal that holds you even when no human hand does. Cultivate this through nature, without devices, through creative flow states, where time disappears through quiet service to others that no one ever sees or credits. This is how Carl Jung, empath and personal development, transcends the personal and touches the universal, how your private work becomes part of something larger than yourself. Now, you've met your companions, the shadow who holds your power, the inner counterpart who completes you, the self who guides you, the ancestors who teach you, the numinous that holds you. You were never truly alone. You've just been looking in the wrong places, seeking in the outer world what can only be found within. Understanding is beautiful, but transformation requires practice. There's an old alchemical process with 3 stages that maps perfectly onto psychological growth: nigredo, the blackening descent and death; albedo, the whitening purification and clarity; rubedo, the reddening integration and emergence. Let's make this real. Take it from theory to practice, from idea to lived experience. Nigredo means accepting where you are without sugarcoating it, without spiritual bypassing, without pretending everything is fine when it's not. Every dawn or dusk, take a blank page and write 3 lines only. First, what hurts right now? Name it plainly without poetry or metaphor. Not, I feel disconnected from my purpose, but I'm lonely and scared I'm wasting my life. Second, what am I avoiding? The smallest action you're not taking. Not, I need to figure out my career, but I haven't opened that email for 3 days. Third, boredom. What must die? One belief or habit that no longer serves. Not, I need to change everything, but the belief that I need permission to start. Do this for 30 days. It transforms suffering from chaos into material you can work with, from overwhelming emotion into clear information. Here's another nigredo practice called shadow budgeting. List your 3 most respectable strengths, the qualities people praise you for. For each one name, the shadow cost the hidden price you pay for that strength. If empathy is your strength, people-pleasing might be the leak you feel everyone's pain, but neglect your own needs. If discipline is your strength, rigidity might be choking your joy. You get things done, but can't play, can't rest, can't be spontaneous. If vision is your strength, grandiosity might be sabotaging follow-through. You see the big picture, but can't handle the small steps. Once you see these leaks, allocate daily time to their antidotes. 1 clean no to seal the empathy leak. 20 minutes of purposeless play to open the discipline leak. 1 unglamorous task finished before starting anything new to ground the vision leak. This balances your psychology, makes you whole instead of just strong in one direction. Albedo is the washing, clean the purification. Build an inner board of directors with 4 chairs in your mind. 4 aspects of psychological wholeness. The child who asks, what if? Who sees possibility, who plays without purpose. The warrior who declares, I will, who sets boundaries, who acts with courage. The lover who knows, I care, who feels deeply, who creates beauty, who connects with meaning. The sage who understands the long view, who sees patterns, who offers wisdom and patience. Every morning, spend 5 minutes asking each for 1 instruction. What does the child want to explore today? What does the warrior need to protect? What does the lover want to create or connect with? What does the sage see that I'm missing? Act on 2 daily. This replaces external advisors with internal wisdom that never sleeps, never judges, never abandons, never has an agenda except your growth. And here's the rubedo embodiment, making it real in the world. Choose 1 work that matters, 1 practice that feels like your vocation, whether anyone ever pays you or sees it or not. Writing code, teaching art, care, craft, doesn't matter what it is. Give it 90 quiet minutes daily with your phone in another room, with no interruptions, with no checking to see if anyone has validated your effort yet. This isn't productivity theater or hustle culture. This is your individuation made visible. Your work becomes the container where the self can finally express itself without performing for anyone, without justifying its existence, without asking permission. Create a Sabbath of solitude, 1/2 day per week, with no inputs. No news, no social feeds, no opinions, no podcasts, no people. Walk without headphones and notice what thoughts emerge when you're not drowning them out. Read one difficult page from a book that challenges you. Make something simple with your hands. Cook, draw. Build anything that requires presence. Notice what symbols keep appearing in your awareness, what images or themes recur. Solitude stops being fate and becomes fuel. It stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you cultivate, because you know it feeds something essential. Practice ruthless polarity. Say yes only where your blood moves, where your body says yes, before your mind starts calculating outcomes and managing impressions. Say no everywhere else kindly, but clearly without over-explaining or justifying. The self advances by subtraction, not addition. You're not saying no to people, you're saying yes to your actual path. You're not being selfish, you're being faithful to what's trying to emerge through you. Now create your North Star, your compass in 4 sentences. The wound I'm transforming is Jadramat. Be specific, not pain, but the belief that I have to earn the right to exist. The gift it becomes is Twaya. What capacity emerges from that wound? The people it serves are Gakasyak. Who benefits from your transformation? The practice I'm willing to repeat is Kaktain Yalpardain Twaktat. What will you do daily regardless of results? Write it. Put it where you'll see it every morning. Reread it before every major decision. This prevents detours disguised as opportunities, keeps you from saying yes to things that look good, but don't actually serve your path. Forget big goals when you're alone. They collapse under their own weight without external support and accountability. Use micro thresholds so small, they're almost insulting to your ambition. Write 150 words, not a book. Do 10 push-ups, not a transformation. Send 1 email that matters, not a network. The psyche trusts proofs, not promises. It trusts what you actually do, not what you say you'll do. Tiny wins compound into character, and character is what carries you forward when motivation fails. Finally, ritualize feedback in solitude, and each work session with 2 lines in a journal. What moved today? 1 sentence about what actually happened, what energy shifted, what became a little clearer. What learns? 1 adjustment you'll make next time. This replaces external applause with internal calibration. You become your own witness, your own feedback loop, your own source of recognition. And that's when everything changes, because you're no longer dependent on anyone else to tell you if you're on the right path. Let's address the traps, because they're real, and they catch almost everyone. The savior spiral, trying to earn belonging by fixing everyone else, by being so helpful and indispensable that people have to keep you around. The solution, compassion plus boundary equals respect. Help when asked and when you have surplus. Otherwise, just hold presence without rescuing. Persona. Inflation performing a successful solo journey that's just another mask, another performance, another way to avoid being real. The solution, take 1 public risk weekly that aligns with your private values, something that might lose you approval but gains you integrity. Nihilism in fine robes, calling your cynicism realism, your numbness wisdom, your disconnection enlightenment. The solution, small vows kept, daily cure, meaning drain. 1 promise kept, 1 commitment honored, 1 act of creation that serves beauty or truth or goodness. Spiritual bypass using meditation and quotes and concepts to avoid necessary action, necessary conflict, necessary growth. The solutions say the unsaid kindly and let consequences educate. Have the hard conversation. Take the risk. Let reality teach you instead of hiding in philosophy. And isolation as identity, mistaking solitude for superiority, convincing yourself you're better than people who need connection, that your aloneness makes you special. The solution practice, clean contact, brief, honest, warm interactions that don't barter your soul, but don't wall it off either. You can be alone without being isolated. You can be self-sufficient without being superior. So who do you become through this work? Not successful in the Instagram sense, not impressive in the resume sense, but whole, integrated, self-directed. The individuated person is comfortable in solitude, yet capable in company. Doesn't need approval, but can receive it gracefully without inflating or deflecting. Fails without collapsing, because failure informs, but doesn't define. It's data, not destiny. Creates from overflow, not desperation, not proving, not performing. Helps from fullness, not savior complex, not guilt, not the need to be needed. Holds paradox without needing to resolve it. Humble yet confident. Soft, yet boundaried alone, yet connected. Serious, yet playful. Here's what happens. People start showing up differently. Not because you manifested them through vision boards or positive thinking, but because you stopped needing them to complete you. The energy changes. You're no longer seeking grasping performing. You're just present whole yourself. And health recognizes health. Wholeness attracts wholeness. Healthy relationships form around fullness, not wounds looking for someone to heal them. This is the final truth about Carl Jung, empath and personal development. When you become whole within yourself, your relationships reflect that wholeness back to you. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Let me give you a 10-day practice to start immediately to take all this theory and make it concrete. Day 1, write your 4-sentence North Star and place it where you'll see it every morning. Day 2, 90 minutes on your craft phone in another room. No checking for validation. Day 3, active imagination with your inner critic. Invite it to speak. Ask what it protects. Write the dialogue. Day 4, 1, boundary. 1 clear. No record how it felt in your body and what thoughts came up. Day 5, make something small and complete. Share with one person without needing their response to validate you. Day 6, 20 minutes of purposeless play. Something you do purely because it feels good, not because it's productive. Day 7, walk without headphones. Notice 3 recurring symbols or themes in your environment or thoughts. Day 8, finish a neglected task, something you've been avoiding before starting anything new. Day 9, read 1 challenging page from a difficult book. Copy a paragraph by hand to slow down and absorb it. Day 10, half-day input fasting, somebody of any kind, and with 3 lines: what hurts, what I'm avoiding, what must die. Do this sequence once, 10 days. Then you'll know if this path is yours, if this work resonates with something real in you, or if it's just ideas. The proof is in the practice. The truth is in what actually shifts when you do the work instead of just thinking about doing the work. Remember the loneliness that brought you here, that crack in your chest, that feeling of being utterly alone in the middle of your own life. That wasn't punishment. It was invitation. The universe, life, the self, whatever you want to call it, was calling you inward because there was something there you needed to meet. Getting ahead when no one is there isn't about racing forward frantically to prove you can do it alone. It's about becoming the person who knows where they're going because they've taken the time to look inside and find their actual direction, not the one borrowed from others. And that person, they walk steady even in the dark because they carry the light inside. They don't need the crowd to tell them they're on the right path because they've learned to feel it in their bones, in their breath, in the rightness that emerges when you're finally aligned with your actual self. One clean step, then another. The path appears beneath your feet not because someone laid it for you, but because you're becoming the one who can walk it. The self keeps pace. You just have to keep walking. And when you do, when you choose this path of turning inward instead of constantly seeking outward, you discover something remarkable. You were never actually alone. You just hadn't met yourself yet. If this resonated, leave a comment. What's the one practice you'll start tomorrow? Subscribe for more psychology that actually transforms instead of just informing. Share this with someone walking alone right now. They need to know the path isn't empty. It's just lit from within. Your solitude isn't punishment. It's preparation for becoming who you actually are.